AITA for refusing to sell my aunt's house below value after my sister's deal backfired? I'm Stella, 35, the older sister who always got called the one who'll figure it out whenever my parents needed an excuse to give Brooke another pass. I keep spare batteries in my junk drawer, save receipts in labeled envelopes, and still have the chipped blue mug Aunt June used to hand me when I came over to fix things around her house. That probably tells you more about me than any family speech ever could. In my family, Brooke was never exactly told no. She was corrected gently, rescued loudly, and forgiven before she even apologized. When she borrowed my clothes and returned them stained, my mother Elaine would sigh and say, "It's just stuff, Stella. Don't make your sister feel worse." When Brooke wrecked my old laptop in college after promising she only needed it for one night, my father Richard told me, "You're older. Be the bigger person." That phrase followed me into adulthood like an unpaid bill. Be the bigger person meant I paid for the birthday gift and Brooke signed the card. Be the bigger person meant I drove across town when Brooke's car wouldn't start, even though she had ignored 3 of my calls the week before. Be the bigger person meant Brooke could forget, break, borrow, cry, and somehow I was the one who needed to soften my tone. For a long time I thought that was just older sister pressure. Annoying, unfair, but normal enough. Then I got older and realized there was a pattern. Brooke's mistakes became family emergencies. My boundaries became character flaws. Aunt June saw it before I wanted to admit it. June was my father's sister, and she wasn't the warm, cookie-baking type people pretend all older relatives are. She could be blunt enough to make a room go quiet, and she had a way of looking over her glasses that made grown adults suddenly remember the truth. But she noticed things. She noticed who came over when there was no holiday meal waiting. She noticed who remembered her appointments. She noticed who showed up with groceries and then stayed to tighten a loose cabinet hinge without announcing it to the whole family. That was usually me. I didn't do it because I expected anything. June lived alone, and after her knees started bothering her, simple things became harder. I would stop by after work or on Saturdays and help with whatever had piled up. Tax envelopes spread across the kitchen table, a leaky faucet, a box of old family photos in the garage, bags of cat litter she insisted she could lift but absolutely could not. She would hand me coffee in that chipped blue mug and say things like, "You don't make a production out of helping. That's rare in this family." I would laugh it off because that was easier than letting it land. Brooke visited Aunt June too, but mostly when there was food, attention, or a photo opportunity. She would sit on the couch, scroll on her phone, compliment June's curtains, and leave with leftovers. My parents called June when they needed something, then acted wounded when she didn't treat them like devoted relatives. When Aunt June died, the grief hit me in odd little places. The smell of dust in her hallway closet, the coffee ring on the side table, a grocery list still stuck to the fridge with lemons written in her sharp, slanted handwriting. I kept expecting her to call and ask if I knew where she put the extension cord, even though she had owned that house for decades and knew exactly where everything was. For days after the funeral, the probate attorney called. "Your aunt was very specific," he said. "The house goes to you. She also left you several family photos and a letter." I remember sitting down at my kitchen table even though I had been standing just fine a second earlier. The house was small, older, and ordinary, but it was paid off except for the usual expenses. It wasn't some mansion. It was June's house, with the squeaky back door and the kitchen window that looked out over her crooked little garden beds. For once, something in my family came to me without an argument. That lasted 4 days. My father called first. I could hear the television low in the background, which meant he was in his recliner and probably had my mother within earshot. "Stella," he said, skipping hello. "We need to talk about June's house." "I'm still sorting through everything," I said. "That's exactly why we should discuss it before emotions get involved." That was my first warning. In my family, before emotions get involved usually meant before my emotions got in the way of what someone else wanted. He cleared his throat. "The house should stay useful to the family." "It is in the family," I said. "June left it to me." He ignored that. "Brooke needs a real chance. She's been trying to get back on her feet, and this could be the fresh start she needs." I looked at Aunt June's letter sitting unopened on the counter. "Brooke has an apartment. It's not stable," he said. "And you don't need a house sitting empty." I haven't decided what I'm doing with it. You can sell it to her, he said, like he had been generous enough to find a solution for me. $180,000. That's fair between sisters. I literally pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it. I'm not discussing a transfer over the phone, I said. Family comes first, Stella. It always has. No, I said more calmly than I felt. I'm not discussing a transfer over the phone. My mother called 10 minutes later. She used a softer voice, which was always how she made guilt feel like concern. Honey, your father told me you sounded upset. I sounded surprised. Brooke needs a chance. You've always been better at landing on your feet. There it was. The family motto dressed up in a sweater. I'm not giving Brooke Aunt June's house, I said. No one said giving. You said $180,000. That's still money. I'm going to check the value and talk to the attorney. My mother went quiet for half a second too long. I don't know when you became this hard. I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, I did exactly what I said I would do. I looked up comparable sales. I checked a Zillow estimate, then 3 other listings nearby that had sold recently. I pulled out the property tax bill the attorney had given me and read through basic paperwork I barely understood. I made notes in the margin of a legal pad. Then I printed everything and put it into a folder. Their offer wasn't just low. It was low enough that I stopped assuming they were confused. The next few days were a slow drip of pressure. Brooke texted me once, all soft edges and sad emojis. I hate that this is making things weird. I just thought you'd want to help me. I didn't answer. Then Dad texted. We need to handle this as a family, not with lawyers and websites. Mom sent. Aunt June would be heartbroken to see you acting like this. That one made my hand tighten around my phone. Aunt June had been many things, but easily fooled was not one of them. On Thursday, Mom invited me to Sunday dinner. Just a calm conversation, she said. No one is attacking you. I almost laughed. When someone has to promise no one is attacking you, there's usually a folding chair with your name on it. Still I went. Not because I planned to sign anything. Not because I thought they would suddenly be fair. I went because I wanted to see how far they were willing to take it. The second I walked in, I knew it was a setup. Uncle Miles was there, sitting stiffly on the end of the couch with a paper plate balanced on his knee. Cousin Rachel was in the kitchen helping Mom with salad. 2 aunts stood by the counter, whispering in the way people do when they want you to know they were whispering about you. A couple of cousins I hadn't seen in months were already at the dining table. Brooke was sitting across from the empty chair that had clearly been left for me. She looked polished and fragile, like she had practiced being wounded in the mirror. When I came in, she gave me a small smile and stirred her iced tea. Stella, my father said too loudly. Glad you decided to come. I set my purse on the chair beside me instead of on the floor. You said it was a calm conversation. It is, Mom said quickly, with red eyes that looked a little too ready. We're just family. Dinner was awkward from the first bite. Forks scraped plates. Someone asked about traffic even though no one cared. Brooke kept glancing at me, and then looking down like I had wounded her by existing. My father waited until dessert, because apparently ambushes taste better with pie. He put his fork down and looked around the table. There's something this family needs to address. My stomach went cold, but I kept my face still. Stella has decided a house matters more than her sister's future, he said. Aunt Linda made a soft sound of disapproval. Rachel looked at me, then at Brooke. Mom dabbed at the corner of her eye. I don't know where my daughter went. She used to care about her sister. Brooke's voice came out small. I just don't understand why you need it so badly. I looked at her for a long second. Aunt June left it to me. Dad leaned back. You're hiding behind paperwork because you know you're wrong. I'm not signing anything at a dinner table. No one is asking you to sign it tonight, Mom said. Then why is half the family here? Silence moved around the table like a draft. Brooke looked down into her glass, but not before I caught the tiny curve of her mouth. It wasn't much, just a flicker, but it was enough. Dad's voice hardened. This is bigger than you. No, I said. It's about a house Aunt June legally left me. That doesn't become a family vote because Brooke wants it. Mom's face crumpled. Aunt June would be ashamed. That one almost got me. Not because I believed it, but because she knew exactly where to press. I stood up. I'm going home. Dad slammed his palm on the table, not hard enough to be dramatic, just hard enough to remind everyone he expected obedience. If you walk out, you're choosing that house over this family. Picked up my purse. No, I'm choosing not to be cornered during dessert. The family group chat exploded before I made it home. Stella, this is not the Aunt June I knew. You're really making Brooke homeless? Is a house worth losing your parents? Your sister needs help. You need to soften your heart. Greed changes people. Rachel wrote only one message. I hope there's more to this because this feels wrong. I appreciated that more than she probably knew, even though she still hadn't asked me what actually happened. Then Dad left a voicemail. If you choose that house over this family, don't expect this family to keep choosing you. I sat in my car in the driveway and listened to it twice. The first time my hands shook. The second time they didn't. I opened the group chat and typed 3 different replies. The first one was angry. The second one was cruel. The third one was the kind of long explanation women write when they still believe being understood will save them. I deleted all 3. If I screamed, they would call me unstable. If I cried, they would call me dramatic. So I let the paper trail speak in complete sentences. I made a folder on my phone and started saving everything. Screenshots by date. Voicemails backed up. Texts copied into notes. I emailed the probate attorney and asked for a complete copy of Aunt June's estate file, including any letters, filings, and communications related to the house. The attorney replied the next morning with a clean confirmation. I was the sole legal owner once the transfer was finalized through the estate process, and no one else had authority to sell, lease, list, access, or represent the property. Then he forwarded something odd. It was an email from a realtor with the subject line, question regarding family transfer. The realtor wrote that she was checking whether Stella has completed the family transfer yet, before moving forward with any listing or lease-to-own paperwork. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I called her. She sounded cautious from the start. I'm sorry, she said. I was under the impression your sister was about to become the owner. She told you that? She said it was basically hers, just waiting on your signature. I stared at the printed property estimate on my table. Did she ask you to list it? Not exactly list it traditionally, the realtor said. She asked about a lease-to-own arrangement. I told her I needed ownership confirmation before anything could move forward. My mouth went dry. Do you have that in writing? There was a pause. Yes. Please forward everything to my attorney. By that afternoon I had the email chain. Brooke had not been trying to move into Aunt June's house for a fresh start. She had promised it to a couple from her social circle as a lease-to-own deal. She told them they could move in within 6 weeks. She told them my parents were handling the legal part, because I was being emotional but would come around. And she had accepted an $8,000 deposit. A cashier's check. Already deposited. I sat at my kitchen table with the email open, feeling something colder than anger settle in my chest. The kind of cold that makes your thoughts quiet. Then Rachel called. I don't want to get involved, she said, which is what people say after they have already been involved on the wrong side. But Brooke accidentally sent something to the cousin chat, then deleted it. I screenshotted it because it seemed weird. She sent it to me. It was a text thread between Brooke, Mom, and Dad. Dad, just keep quiet until Sunday. Once Stella feels enough pressure, she'll sign. Mom, don't mention the deposit. It will make people focus on the wrong thing. Brooke, she always drags things out when she wants attention. Dad, that's why we handle it together. I read those 4 messages until the words stopped looking like words. That was the moment I stopped wondering whether my parents misunderstood me. They understood exactly what they were doing. Aunt June's letter arrived with the rest of the attorney's file the next day. It was notarized, folded once, and written in her plain, firm way. No flowery language. No dramatic goodbye. Stella came when there was no spotlight. She helped without making me feel like a burden. I am leaving the house to her because she was present, and because I do not want Richard, Elaine, or Brooke using it as another way to make Stella pay for everyone else's choices. I had to put the letter down after that. Not because I was crying hard. I wasn't. It was worse than that. I just sat there still with my hand over my mouth, realizing Aunt June had seen the whole shape of my life in that family and had tried, in the most practical way she knew, to hand me a door out of it. So I stopped reacting and started acting. I wrote one email. Short. Clean. No insults. I copied the probate attorney and the realtor. Effective immediately, no person other than me has authorization to list, lease, sell, access, advertise, collect funds for, or otherwise represent the property. Any prior statements suggesting otherwise were made without my consent or legal authority. Any funds accepted from third parties in connection with this property must be returned immediately. All future communication about the property must be in writing. I sent it to Brooke, Mom, and Dad. Then I changed the locks. I did it properly with the attorney's okay, a locksmith receipt, and new keys that went into my purse instead of anyone else's hand. I installed a simple security camera by the front door. I checked the windows. I collected the spare key from under the cracked birdbath where June had hidden it for years, because Brooke knew about that spot. A neighbor who had known Aunt June for a long time promised to text me if anyone stopped by acting strange. I don't want trouble, she said. Neither do I told her. That's why I'm documenting everything. The first camera notification came 2 days later. Brooke stood on the porch in oversized sunglasses, jabbing at her phone with one hand and trying the old key with the other. When it didn't work, she looked straight at the camera. Her mouth tightened. A minute later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. Dad called that evening. What do you think you're doing? He demanded. Securing my property. You changed the locks on family? I changed the locks on a house I own. You're making this ugly. No, I said. I'm making it documented. He hung up. The next day, I got an email from him with a scanned packet attached. A quitclaim deed. He had already filled out parts of it before I had agreed to anything. The terms would have transferred the house to Brooke for $180,000, with me responsible for certain fees and unresolved property expenses. I printed it and added it to the folder. By then the folder had tabs. Will. Letter. Valuation. Realtor. Deposit. Parent texts. Voicemails. Group chat. Quitclaim deed. I didn't post anything. I didn't call Brooke names. I didn't make a dramatic announcement. I waited. I knew my father. He hated losing control of a story more than he hated being wrong. If he thought enough relatives still believed him, he would try again. He did. Mom called on Friday with the voice she used when she wanted me to forget I had caller ID. Your father wants everyone to sit down and repair the damage, she said. Everyone. Just family. I looked at the folder on my desk. That's what you said last time. She sighed. Come with a better attitude this time, Stella. I'll come prepared. She didn't like that. I could hear it in the silence before she said goodbye. Sunday dinner looked almost exactly like the first one. Except this time I recognized the performance before anyone opened their mouth. Dad stood near the head of the table like he was chairing a meeting. Mom had tissues folded in her hand. Brooke sat beside her, pale and stiff, but still wearing that careful victim face. Uncle Miles was there again. Rachel was too. So were the same aunts and cousins who had filled the group chat with opinions they had borrowed from my parents. I brought the folder in a plain canvas tote and set it by my feet. We barely made it through the main course. Dad put both hands on the back of his chair and said, We're here because Stella has decided a house matters more than her sister's future. Mom lowered her eyes. I don't know where my daughter went. Brooke's voice trembled on cue. I never wanted drama. I just wanted my family to care. Something about hearing the same script twice made it less painful. It was almost boring watching them reach for the same old buttons. I let them finish. Then I pulled out the folder and placed it on the table. A few people looked confused. Brooke looked annoyed. Dad looked insulted, like the folder itself had disrespected him. At the same time, I sent the timeline into the family group chat. Phones started buzzing around the room. I said, You all got invited here to pressure me. So now you can all hear the part they forgot to mention. Dad's face darkened. This is not the time. It was the time when you called me greedy in front of everyone, I said. It can be the time now. I opened the folder. I started with the will, then the attorney's confirmation that I was the legal owner, and no one else had authority to represent the property. Then Aunt June's letter. I didn't read all of it out loud. I only read the line that mattered most. I do not want Richard, Elaine, or Brooke using it as another way to make Stella pay for everyone else's choices. Mom flinched like June had reached out from the grave and tapped the table. Dad said, "That letter is private." It was private until you tried to use Aunt June's name to shame me. Then I showed the valuation. Comparable sales. Estimate ranges. The $180,000 offer was circled in red on a copy of Dad's proposed quitclaim packet. "You told everyone this was fair," I said. "It wasn't." Dad snapped. "It was between family." "No. It was a lowball offer with guilt wrapped around it." Brooke pushed back from the table. "This is so unnecessary." I looked at her. "We're getting there." Her face changed. I read the realtor's email next. The phrase family transfer made a couple of people look up from their phones. Then I showed Brooke's messages, the ones where she called the house basically mine, and said I was emotional but would come around. Rachel's lips parted slightly. Uncle Miles took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Then I showed the lease-to-own email chain. Aunt Linda whispered, "What deposit?" Brooke's chair scraped the floor. "Stella." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Brooke accepted an $8,000 deposit from a couple for a house she did not own. The room went still. Mom said too quickly, "It wasn't like that." I turned the next page. Mom knew. I read her text out loud. "Don't mention the deposit. It will make people focus on the wrong thing." Mom's face went pink. Then I read Dad's. "Just keep quiet until Sunday. Once Stella feels enough pressure, she'll sign." Dad's jaw worked like he was chewing on every word he couldn't swallow. "You said I picked a house over family," I said. "No. I picked the truth over being robbed politely." Brooke's eyes filled, but this time the tears looked angry. "You're humiliating me." "You were fine letting them call me greedy," I said. "You don't get to cry because I brought receipts." "That deposit was going to be handled," she said. "How?" "Mom and Dad said you'd come around." A couple of relatives made small sounds, not gasps exactly, more like the room realizing it had been holding the wrong person responsible. Dad pointed at me. "You are destroying this family." "No," I said. "I'm just refusing to be the only person in this family who pays for keeping it together." Uncle Miles had been quiet through both dinners, which was his usual way. He avoided drama until it pulled up a chair beside him. But that night, he leaned forward and looked directly at Brooke. "Did you take a deposit on a house you don't own?" Brooke opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her silence did what my arguing never could. Rachel looked down at her phone, scrolling through the timeline I had sent. Aunt Linda wouldn't look at my mother. One cousin slowly set his fork down like he no longer wanted to be associated with the table. Dad tried again because loud certainty had always worked for him before. "This family doesn't survive if everyone only thinks about themselves." I closed the folder. Then Brooke should have thought about the couple she took money from. You should have thought about Aunt June's wishes. Mom should have thought before helping hide a deposit. I'm done being the place where everyone else's bad choices land. Mom started crying for real then, or at least louder. "You're so cold." "No," I said. "I'm tired. There's a difference." I stood up. "All future communication about the house goes through my attorney or happens in writing. I won't attend another dinner arranged to pressure me. I won't loan Brooke money. I won't cover refunds. And I won't pretend this was a misunderstanding to make everyone more comfortable." Brooke's voice sharpened. "You're really going to ruin me over a misunderstanding?" I looked at her, and for a second I saw the little girl who used to break my things and wait for our mother to explain why I was wrong for being upset. Then I saw the adult woman who had taken $8,000 from people on a promise she had no right to make. "You did not misunderstand ownership," I said. "You gambled on pressure." Then I left. The fallout started before I reached my car. The realtor emailed that same evening to say she would no longer communicate with Brooke and had advised the couple to seek their money back directly from her. The couple, apparently very real and very angry, demanded the full $8,000 immediately. I knew because Brooke forwarded me their message with the subject line in all caps. Fix this. I didn't fix it. By Monday afternoon, my phone looked like it was trying to warn me about a natural disaster. Brooke called again and again. 19 missed calls by dinner. Then one voicemail. Stella, what did you do? Her voice shook, but this time there was no audience to perform for. They're demanding their money back. Call me back right now. Please. You don't understand. If they sue me, this will ruin me. The funny thing was I hadn't touched Brooke's money. I had only told the truth about my house. For once, I decided not to understand on her behalf. Dad left 3 messages that week. The first was angry. The second was colder. The third tried to sound reasonable, which somehow made it worse. We need to resolve this without outsiders, he said. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to my attorney. Mom texted, I hope you're proud of yourself. I replied once. Please put any communication about the house in writing. She sent back a crying emoji. I did not answer. The family group chat changed slowly, then all at once. Rachel was the first to say something. I'm sorry. I judged you based on what I was told and I should have asked what actually happened. Then another cousin wrote. I didn't know about the deposit. That changes things. Aunt Linda said nothing, but she left the chat. Uncle Miles wrote, calling something family does not make it honest. No one replied to that for a while. Dad tried to push back with a long message about loyalty, but it landed differently now that everyone had the timeline. People who had been loud before suddenly became very busy. A few went quiet. A few apologized awkwardly. Some never did either one. That was fine. I wasn't looking for a standing ovation from people who had needed screenshots to consider me human. I sent one final message to the group. You tried to shame me into signing away my property. I chose paperwork instead. If anyone wants to judge me, read the whole timeline first. If that is too much work, keep my name out of your mouth. Any communication about Aunt June's house must go through my attorney or be sent in writing. I will not discuss it at dinners, holidays, phone calls, or through guilt from third parties. Then I muted the chat. Brooke eventually returned the money. I don't know if she borrowed it, drained a credit card, or convinced my parents to cover it. For the first time in my life, I didn't investigate a Brooke disaster to see where I could help. The couple didn't sue from what I heard, but they did send a formal letter demanding confirmation that they had no agreement connected to my house. My attorney handled it. Dad stopped speaking to me for a while, which was less peaceful than people think. Silence from a parent who used to control the room is still a sound. It sits there. It asks whether you are really willing to let the relationship shrink if that's the price of keeping your spine. I was. Mom tried different angles. A soft voicemail about missing her daughters. A text about how holidays would feel strange. A message saying Aunt June would never want all this bitterness. That one almost got a response. Instead, I drove to Aunt June's house. The new key turned smoothly in the lock. That small click felt better than any apology my parents could have given me because it was real. Inside, the house smelled faintly like dust, wood polish, and the lemon cleaner June always bought in bulk. The property tax bill was on the kitchen counter where I had left it. I paid it that afternoon, sitting at June's old table with my laptop open and the chipped blue mug beside me. It wasn't glamorous. It was a bill. But paying it myself felt like putting my name on my own life in ink. I spent the next few weekends cleaning out the garage. Not all at once. June had labeled boxes in her handwriting, and some of them stopped me cold. Christmas lights. Dad's school papers. Photos 1980s. Miscellaneous. Probably useless, which made me laugh out loud in the quiet. In one box I found old family photos Brooke would probably want copies of someday. I didn't throw them away. I wasn't trying to erase anyone. I set them aside, scanned them, and kept the originals safe. There is a difference between having boundaries and becoming cruel. My family had spent years pretending those were the same thing. Rachel came by once to help me sort. She brought coffee and looked embarrassed standing in the doorway. I really am sorry, she said. I know. I should have asked you before I believed them. Yeah, I said. Not harshly. Just honestly. She nodded. Yeah. That apology wasn't perfect, but it was real enough to start from. Uncle Miles called a week later and said he should have spoken up sooner. You did eventually, I said. That's not the same. No, I said. It isn't. But I appreciate it. My relationship with my parents did not heal in some clean, dramatic way. There was no big family meeting where everyone cried and admitted I had been right all along. Brooke did not suddenly become humble. Dad did not learn to say sorry without attaching a lecture to it. Mom did not stop confusing her tears with proof. What changed was me. I stopped answering calls just because someone was upset. I stopped treating panic as an invoice with my name on it. I stopped explaining the same boundary in 6 different emotional languages, hoping one of them would finally sound acceptable. The house stayed mine. Sometimes I sit on Aunt June's back steps with coffee in the blue mug, even though the chip makes it slightly annoying to drink from. The garden beds are still crooked. The garage still has too many boxes. The hallway light flickers if it rains hard. It's not perfect and it doesn't need to be. It is the one place in my family story where someone saw what I had been carrying and decided I should not have to carry more. Brooke wanted the benefit without the history. My parents wanted my signature so they would not have to admit they had built her entitlement one rescue at a time. They called it loyalty. They called it family. They called it a fresh start. But fresh starts do not begin with someone else's deed. I didn't steal my sister's future. I just stopped letting her build it with things that belonged to me. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.